Antonia and I am 19 years old and I graduated last year. And then I think most of us at least come to the point where they're like, what am I gonna do with my life now? I was 17 when I graduated from high school in Germany and I absolutely had no clue on what my next step is going to be. So I thought about, let's take a gap year. And then there's so many different possibilities to take a gap year. You can go to America, you can go to Australia, you can basically go all over the world. But I was like, I want to do something entirely different. And I thought like, how can I use this year to also learn something maybe that will help you in my future life? So after some time, I came up with the idea to go to China. And one of the main things that made me go to China definitely was the language. I mean, we all grow up thinking like, there's a language that is entirely different from our own language. They write with characters and everyone's like, wow, Chinese, I could never do that. And I was like, well, let's just give it a try, and I absolutely have nothing to lose. So I went to Beijing, and the first few days in China, at least as well, were kind of difficult because the language is very, very, very different. It's not like, for example, when you learn Spanish, I'm German, so my mother tongue obviously is German, and there are like differences like apple to German it's Apfel, or there are things like water, in German it's Wasser. But in Chinese, apple is 苹果 and water is 水. And you're like, there's no connection whatsoever to the entire structure. So you come there and they all speak a different language. I lived in a family of 5. With me together, there were 6, and 3 of them couldn't speak English. So only the host child, the 7-year-old, and my host mom could speak English, which already was an advantage because there were at least some people that could speak my language. So I immediately went to university. 3 days after my arrival in Beijing, I went to university, which was also great because it was such a cool place to get to know all the different people. And because I arrived so briefly before the start of the semester, I came into class 20 minutes late. And they were already like straight into the topic. I was like, wow, what are they talking about? I don't get anything, and I got such a high stress level. And I was like, what am I gonna do now? But then at the beginning, you really were like, what is happening here? Because you start with such basic things, like only the different tones. I don't know if you know anything about the Chinese language, but they have 4 different tones, and if there's no tone, so that gives you 5 different meanings to one word that would sound exactly the same in German. So at the beginning you start with the differentiation of the different tones. So like, we all sat there in class being like, and you're like, what was the difference? I don't know what I'm doing here. Why am I learning this? But that was only the first few days, because then you realize this is so important because it makes all the difference. One example, which was actually very funny, this is basically what happens to every foreigner coming to China learning Chinese. It's when you go to a place and you want to know where the toilet is. So you're like, excuse me, where's the toilet? And you're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, the toilet. Can you tell me where the toilet is? And they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then you try the tones and you're like, toilet, toilet, toilet. And they're like, oh, the toilet. And you're like, yeah, that's what I said about 100 times now. But the good thing is, when you get it right, after a couple of weeks, you will definitely get a feeling for the tones more and more. Then it's the best feeling ever. Seriously, it's so easier after some time. And like, when you think, wow, it's so hard, you suddenly get into grammar. And grammar in Chinese is the easiest thing ever. They don't have something like a past form. When you want to say something in the past, you just say, yesterday I eat food. And then basically that's it. It's so simple. They don't differentiate between he, she, or it. They don't differentiate between verbs. It works the same in at all times. It's amazing. It's really, really, really easy and simple. And for example, for the weekdays, they do weekday 1, weekday 2, weekday 3, weekday 4. Not like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. They do as simple as that. They just do it with numbers. So it's actually very simple. I mean, still it's difficult to learn the characters, but it's also like a lot of fun when you start realizing you get things you can read in the subway, and coming home and everyone's like, wow, you speak Chinese now, and you're like, yeah, I think I do a little bit at least. So that was pretty awesome. But for me, even better was the communication with Chinese people, especially of course with my host family, to be able to get to know them better, but also to understand the culture. It's so much easier to understand the culture when you speak the language. Especially the people as well, like sitting in the subway, people will come up to you and talk to you because I'm blonde and tall, so they would come up to you like, where are you from? And in the beginning when people talk to you, like, I'm so sorry, I cannot, I'm like, I don't know. And none of Chinese, like no Chinese people speak English, so you're really forced into the situation to learn Chinese, which was a great challenge for me personally. And then when you start to understand them and start speaking to them, it's pretty amazing, because I know from Western places a lot of people have prejudices towards Chinese people, which is completely wrong, because you cannot judge them if you cannot talk to them. Sometimes they might seem very different, and they are, but when you're open-minded, which is I think a very, very, very good thing about a person if they're being open-minded towards them, then you can definitely learn a lot from them. And it's just something exotic, something different, something refreshing. I'm at university now, and my major includes business administration. So if I want to work in a field of business in the future, I think Chinese will definitely be an advantage compared to my colleagues. You want to apply for a job and you can say you talk Chinese to a certain level. I also did my HSK, which is like the Cambridge exam or the TOEFL test in European languages, or in English, this one especially in English. And I also did that one for Chinese. So if you can put that on your resume, I think it's definitely an advantage you have towards other people. And now that I'm at university, first things I did was apply for a Chinese course till I, keep going, keep doing the things. And I also found a language buddy. She's from Shanghai, and I'm gonna teach her some German. She's gonna teach me some Chinese. And it's also just great to keep in touch and with the culture, with the people. So from my point of view, this was like one of the best parts about going to China was learning the languages. And it's also one of the most challenging, but also something that will push you out of your comfort zone and definitely help you grow as a person, for me personally. So that was pretty amazing. And the good thing about it for me was as well, you go to China, some people are like, I cannot afford a year abroad, I cannot afford a gap year, but if you go to China with Star Exchange, they will pay for your flight to China and away from China if you stay for 12 months. I stayed for a little bit more than half a year, so they paid my flight back to Germany. And they also pay for your university. You get a monthly allowance from your host family, but you will also get paid for university. So that for me was definitely a plus point as well, because I was also like, this can be expensive. I have to look up for organizations that might cost a lot of money. So this was definitely one of the cheapest things you could do as well. I mean, it's not the main motive to go there, but it was definitely a further plus point for me personally. So I would recommend it to anyone that would say, I'm up for it, I'm interested in different cultures, I'm interested in learning different languages, I wanna, do something different, learn something different, then this is definitely your choice, and it was my choice. To go to China, to live in a host family, because it's definitely a different experience. It cannot, of course, it's not always easy. You gotta, keep pushing and everything, but it's definitely, as a person, I think it helped me the most. It helped me more than any other year abroad that I could have done. So I would recommend you to go to China if you get the chance, if you're interested in it, and try to learn the language. I went to China with no knowledge about it at all, with no Chinese skills, nothing, and now I'm at an HSK 3 level and I want to improve further. And it's a pretty cool thing to be telling about yourself as well, being like, yeah, one special thing I can do, I speak some Chinese, and I lived in China for 8 months. So I think that's definitely something you should take into account when choosing how to use your gap year after university. So I hope this was interesting to you. and I hope I could maybe convince you a little bit as well to be going to China. And yeah, I'm looking forward to reading all of your reviews on the Star Exchange website if you really do decide to go to China.